Doo-doo-dee. It's Nandi!
Hello friends. I don't think we've ever had survivals in back-to-back patches, but here we are. As part of the Dawn of War 4 crossover and Skulls reveals, Snowprint have done another survival event, so I'm back with a video to help you make the most of it. I'll be honest, of all of the survivals I've played in this game, this was easily the most fun and engaging, a sentiment that was echoed by quite a few of the other testers. A quick shout out to FMG who has been invaluable in putting this together. His referral code is on screen as a thank you. The protagonist for this event is Cyrus, Bloodraven's captain and hero from the Dawn of War franchise. The event starts on May 24th and runs for a week. You start with 2 tokens and the token refresh rate is 12 hours. Therefore, over the 7 days, you will have 15 tokens as a free-to-play player. All Imperial Space Marine factions are playable, and we fight against a huge variety of enemies, which I'll come back to later. Unlike recent survivals, this time there is no deployable machine of war, but the rarity jumpstart mechanic persists. The rewards for this event are Cyrus character shards, along with some upgrades and Imperial resources. I'll quickly cycle through the chest rewards on screen. Remember that you have a string of missions you can complete to increase the stats of our protagonist up to a maximum of 140% bonus health and damage. On screen now are the enemies that you'll expect to fight, as well as the power-ups for different levels. You'll quickly notice that we fight against different enemies every level. I love it, and it's one of the things that makes this survival so much more fun and enjoyable. There are also more waves this survival, up to 20, which is 2 more than the usual 18. I think this survival is supposed to mirror the Last Stand mode in Dawn of War, where you fight for survival against waves of escalating enemies. It keeps the mode more exciting and engaging than just fighting Hormagaunts and Tyranid warriors for 15 levels, for example. Much like the previous survivals, the last wave is generally designed to be unkillable through conventional tactics, and for this event that wave consists of Necron warriors and Ophidian destroyers. I'll mention that the mythic waves here are tougher than previous survivals, and in my testing I didn't find myself getting into that final Necron wave very often. The lack of machine of war also invalidates most of the cheesing options, though I suspect the natural regeneration from living metal would have invalidated them anyway. On top of that, this survival has some fun summon power-ups. Scattered through the event, you can summon NPCs from different factions to come and help you out. They don't scale as you move through rarities, but they just make things a bit more fun and interesting. The presence of those summons combined with the small map makes bringing summoners on your team a much less attractive proposition. There just isn't any space for your summons. I haven't done my usual summary slide because I can't fit everything neatly into it, but I wanted to point out this useful website that has a lot of information for your perusal. I don't actually know who runs Tacticus DB, but it's another awesome community tool. If you navigate to Survival from the homepage, you can see the enemies listed neatly and their stats. I've put a link to the Survivals tab of the website on this video description. On top of the usual waves we fight, this one also has a clone wave, Wave 16, where the characters that you currently have deployed are also summoned as attackers with reduced stats. Once more, this is a tribute to the original Dawn of War Last Stand, where the enemy team copied your characters. Did I mention that I enjoyed the survival? Before we move on to the map, the key waves to defeat for this mode are Wave 6, which gives you 5 epic books, Wave 11, which gives you 3 legendary books, and Wave 13, which gives you a mythic book. So despite the extra waves to clear, the rewards are still at the same level as previous events. Like previous survivals, this one runs concurrently with an Against the Tide home screen event, where you get points for each wave cleared, so you are incentivized to go as deep as possible for each run. This is the map that we play on, and I've taken this screenshot from Tacticus DB, the player-run website that I mentioned earlier. The numbered hexes in blue are the spawn points for our characters, and the yellow hexes with the P in them are where the power-ups will spawn. The map is really small, the smallest that we've ever had, and I think it helps add some fun tactical depth to your play. It also helps with the pace of the event, which has been one of my own personal gripes with survivals in the past. It does also mean that the power-ups can be hard to save for later on in each run, as the enemies have a high chance of running and picking them up. The next thing that doesn't show on Tacticus DB is a new feature of this survival called Strategic Points. I've marked them with a random asset in my asset library, and I'll come back to this later. Finally, elevation. Sorry if this looks messy, but hopefully the annotation still comes through. The middle of the map is relative low ground to your onrushing enemies. You can stay there and have better control of the entire map, but the downside is that you are on low ground and perhaps suffer more damage. Sacrifice the middles, and your units won't suffer the low ground disadvantage, but you potentially risk losing map control. I loved the tension. Speaking of the map, I want to talk about the new feature this survival, strategic points. There are 2 strategic points, one in the northeast and the other in the southwest of the map. You capture a strategic point by standing on it. That means that you can capture it, leave it, and it still stays under your control unless an enemy then stands on it. For each point you have captured, your units gain 20% bonus damage and crit chance, stacking to 40% if you control both. It's a fun new layer that lends a Dawn of War feel to this event, and I think makes it a bit more fun compared to previous survivals. You also get more points for defeating enemies while you control strategic points. A 25% bonus score per strategic point controlled. That means that you probably want to sit one character on each of them, and if you don't control them, you probably want to start each turn trying to reclaim them before you kill enemies. Cyrus, with range 3 and extra stats to tank shots from high ground, is excellently suited to sit on the northeast-ish strategic point, making a small horde of mines to protect himself. Let's look at our protagonist, Cyrus. I've done an entire video showcase on him that I will shamelessly plug here. He is an interesting character, but I don't actually rate him or his kit for wave-based modes. The appealing thing about him here is that he has range 3, and if you put him on one of the conquest points, then he has the range to remain stationary, guard the point, and keep killing enemies each round, made easier by the fact that he gets bonus damage from the missions and the strategic points. He adds mines next to him every turn, and while the mines don't do that much damage, they do provide an extra avenue for dealing with enemies that spawn each round. Now the bit that you're all waiting for, the tier list and recommendations for this event. As a reminder, we are usually searching for characters that can kill multiple enemies per turn, have repeatable summons, or are very resilient or have self-healing. The powerful active ability is less valuable for this survival since the small map often means you can't rely on power-up refreshes. Here is the snapshot overview for this event's tier list. I'll leave it on screen for a bit to digest before talking through some of the choices. Within the greater good tier, we have Jaeger, Mephiston, Matineo, Lucian, Nicodemus, Burchard, and Balder. This time around, there are no characters that are head and shoulders above the rest, so this category is a bit more crowded. Jaeger is excellent at holding a strategic point. Either buffed by Dante or with enough power-ups, he can one-shot or at least significantly damage everything that tries to attack him in melee. Mephiston can clear 3 to 4 enemies per turn and is more resilient than his stats would otherwise indicate thanks to Terrifying. Again, with power-ups, that passive ability really helps clearing enemies. Lucian is really nice because of his double ranged attack, which not only lets him kill 2 enemies per turn, but the ranged attacks are even better in this nature of map. He's also more tanky than he looks thanks to Resilient, and he has an emergency one-time heal if you're desperate. Matineo provides you with mobility and range, and his summons are perfect for this event, providing meat shields that protect your characters, but not staying around to block your movement. I also really quite liked Nicodemus here. The map being small let Nico run around and heal multiple characters every turn through his passive. I didn't actually use his attack most of the time because it let him have his 1 extra movement courtesy of Rapid Assault. Nicodemus also gets a new relic this patch, which elevates his value at the mythic stages even further. Burchard is a character that we've had in this tier before for the Titus survival. For this survival, you can leave him in the middle strategic point to camp it, and he can fairly reasonably, reliably kill 3 enemies per turn with his ranged attack, while being extremely resilient thanks to Gravis armor. Balder is great, and the more I play with him, the more I like him. Using 1 action to effectively deliver 2 heals gives you a huge amount of tactical flexibility. In the good tier, we have Calgar, Titus, Incisus, Godswill, Barkiel, and Forcas. Calgar is perhaps the least exciting of the bunch, but he is genuinely a reasonable attacker following the recent buffs. The passive damage aura is also nice and easily applied to your characters, courtesy of the small map. Summoned units will preferentially move next to him for increased potency. Titus is the Ultramarine poster boy and seems to be really good for Horde mode these days. The small nature of the map means that he can revive himself through his passive fairly reliably. Incisus is good in the way that healers are always going to be at least good in this type of game mode. I think he's probably a step lower than the other Space Marine healers, so I've just left him as good. Godswill's ability to kill 2 enemies per turn is the main thing that puts him in this category. He has pretty reasonable defensive stats and is a solid, if not flashy, pick. Barkiel is nice. I like him more and more as a character when I use him, and the reusable ranged AoE active is well suited to this event. Forcas is the final character in the good tier. He's just a solid melee character with an AoE option on his normal attack, but probably better left in Overwatch mode to deal with multiple enemies per turn. There are some waves with quite a few infiltrators, so you can watch out for those and change stances before they arrive. This event has managed something that I thought I would never see, a survival where Bellator is not great. The map is so small that it's hard to get a whole set of Inceptors, and if you do, they just get in the way and block your other characters moving. If you cannot get to the last enemy of a wave prior to a rarity change, it can spell disaster. Bellator might work better if you play with several ranged characters as supporters, but I generally wasn't impressed here. Since it was well received last time, here is a section on who you should consider giving your power-ups to. Melee hits power-ups are good on units that can hit several units per turn, like Jaeger, Mephiston, or Forecast. It's especially potent on Forecast as it can increase the number of enemies he can overwatch or turn his splash damage mode into a real threat. It can also help to elevate characters like Godswill and their passive. The all hits power-up is a good choice for psychers like Mephiston, but also characters like Burchard and Lucien. Being able to hit several enemies per turn with ranged attacks is super useful. The damage power-up is better on units with a high number of hits because usually they have a low damage stat to compensate. Once more, Forecast is another good choice here, but also Titus, since you want to make sure he is able to kill what is adjacent to him with his final vengeance. If you decide to end up running Bellator, this is a great power-up for him. The armor and health power-up can be given to different units to try and make them tougher, but Space Marines in general are already reasonably resilient. I think the best strategy is to stack these buffs on your damage dealer or carry. The way the power-ups interact end up giving you a super tanky unit, and when that unit also does a lot of damage, you end up with a carry unit that will take you to the final stages of the game. Gravis armor characters make the best tanks in this consideration. Reactivate ability power-ups have less of a clear use this time around, since you're probably not going to want to run Bellator. Use them really wherever you want, if you want to get some extra movement out of Mephiston, or an emergency heal from Nicodemus, or an area of effect attack of some description. That's all I've got for this one, no last wave shenanigans. Hopefully it was useful. Thanks to my Patreons and again to FMG for their support. Enter his code for 100 Blackstone. Bye for now.